Hey, welcome back. We're going to talk again about how every U.S. president died. In Part 1, we uncovered the lives and legacies of America's most influential leaders. Now, let's turn to the final chapter in their remarkable journeys, the moments that marked their last breath. From tragic assassinations to quiet passings, how did these former U.S. presidents meet their end? Join us as we dive into the untold stories behind their final days. Let's start with Rutherford Hayes, who died of heart disease at 70 after a heart attack. His parting words were, "I know that I'm going where Lucy is," referring to his dearly loved wife. And where was she? Likely, he believed she was in heaven, and he was on his way there too. Benjamin Harrison followed. At 67, he succumbed to pneumonia after contracting the flu. His last words were, "Are the doctors here? Doctor, my lungs? Pneumonia truly is rough." William McKinley became the third president assassinated while in office. After serving for 4.5 years, a radical named Leon Czolgosz shot him twice in the abdomen, viewing McKinley as a symbol of oppression. Initially, McKinley seemed to be recovering, but his condition deteriorated and he died of gangrene. His final words, spoken in response to his wife Ida, were, "We are all going, we are all going. God's will be done, not ours." Ida had told him, "I want to go too." 7 years later, Grover Cleveland passed at 71 due to a heart attack after battling various health problems, including coronary sclerosis and an intestinal obstruction. His last words were, "I have tried so hard to do right." Haven't we all, Grover? The next to pass was Teddy Roosevelt, and his death was unexpected. On the night of January 5, 1919, Roosevelt had difficulty breathing but felt better after seeing his doctor. He went to bed, never to wake up again, dying in his sleep. His final words, spoken to his servant James Amos before dozing off, were, "Please put out that light, James." Vice President Thomas Marshall famously said, "Death had to take Roosevelt sleeping, for if he had been awake, there would have been a fight." Roosevelt was just 60, and it's believed he died from a coronary occlusion caused by a blood clot. Warren Harding was the 6th president to pass away while in office and the 3rd to do so from natural causes. During a trip along the West Coast, he started experiencing intense stomach and chest pain. After resting, he initially felt better and continued his journey to San Francisco. But once there, his condition worsened, and he ended up confined to his bed at the Palace Hotel. On August 2, 1923, as his wife Florence read him a favorable article from the Saturday Evening Post, Harding's final words were, "That's good. Go on, read some more." Moments later, he suffered a massive heart attack and passed away at 57, just over 2 years into his presidency. Not long after, Woodrow Wilson also died, having suffered a stroke. This wasn't his first. During his presidency, a severe stroke had almost claimed his life and left him partially paralyzed and nearly blind. His reported last words were, "When the machinery is broken, I am ready." Wilson was 67 at the time of his death and remains the only president buried in Washington, D.C. William Taft followed. Known for being the heaviest U.S. president, Taft made a serious effort to lose weight later in life, shedding about 100 pounds through regular exercise and a healthier diet. He continued serving as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court until shortly before his death from liver inflammation and heart disease at the age of 72. Unfortunately, his last words remain unknown. Calvin Coolidge's death was both sudden and unexpected. At 60, he died of a heart attack. It's said that his final words were, "Good morning, Robert," addressed to a carpenter who was working on his home. Franklin Roosevelt, the seventh president to die in office, passed away after being elected to a historic fourth term. He died at 63, likely from a stroke, after serving for over 12 years. However, there's some speculation that the actual cause of death might have been melanoma, a form of skin cancer. His supposed last words were, "I have a terrific headache." The next president to pass away was John F. Kennedy, the most recent president to die in office, and the fourth to be assassinated. His death is perhaps the most widely known, as it was captured on film and witnessed by the public as he paraded through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, on November 22, 1963. We won't dive into the various conspiracy theories surrounding his assassination, but the Warren Commission and most historians agree that Lee Harvey Oswald was the main culprit, though Oswald himself was killed just 3 days later. Many Americans remain skeptical of the official version of events. Kennedy's final words were, "No, you certainly can't," a response to Nellie Connolly, the wife of Texas Governor John Connolly, who had just said, "You certainly can't say that the people of Dallas haven't given you a nice welcome, Mr. President." At 46, JFK was the youngest U.S. president to die. Herbert Hoover passed away the following year after dealing with various health issues in his final years. The official cause of death was internal bleeding. While we don't know what his final words were, Hoover lived to the impressive age of 90. Not bad, Hoover. Next, the Grim Reaper came for Dwight D. Eisenhower, who died from heart failure at 78. He had battled heart problems for some time and famously had a heart attack while still in office. His supposed last words were, "I want to go. God, take me." Following Eisenhower was Harry Truman, who died after his organs shut down and his blood pressure dropped dangerously low due to severe pneumonia. He was 88 years old, but his last words remain unknown. Less than a month after Truman, Lyndon Johnson passed away. Despite taking office a decade after Truman, LBJ was next in line. Johnson, who was a heavy smoker for much of his life, died at 64 from a heart attack. His last words were reportedly, "Send Mike immediately," referring to his Secret Service agent. By the time Mike arrived at Johnson's Texas ranch, it was too late. LBJ had already passed. It was more than 21 years before another former president died. Richard Nixon passed away at 81 following a stroke. His final word was fitting. Help. Ronald Reagan followed, dying from pneumonia after battling Alzheimer's disease for many years. Diagnosed in 1994, Reagan's health steadily declined. But it's worth remembering that he narrowly escaped being the fifth president assassinated while in office, surviving a gunshot wound in 1981. His last words are unknown, and he was 93 when he passed. 2 years later, Gerald Ford died at the age of 93 from complications related to heart disease. While his official cause of death was listed as atherosclerotic cerebrovascular disease and diffuse arteriosclerosis, the simpler explanation is heart issues. His last words are also unknown. The most recent president to pass away was George H.W. Bush, who died from complications related to Parkinson's disease on November 30, 2018, at the age of 94. At the time, he was the longest-living president, though that title now belongs to Jimmy Carter. Bush's final words, as shared by his son, former President George W. Bush, were, "I love you too." To sum things up, it's clear that U.S. presidents tend to live long lives despite the immense pressures of the job. While the role is often called the most dangerous in America, presidents have consistently outlived the average American. Today, the life expectancy in the U.S. is 78.9 years, but back in 1860, it was just 39.4, largely due to high child mortality rates. The average lifespan of the 39 presidents who have died is 71.1 years, but that spans back to 1797. Interestingly, 24 out of the 35 presidents who passed away from natural causes lived longer than the average life expectancy for their time. Focusing on the last 50 years, the average lifespan of presidents increases to 85.5 years. And just look at the 6 living presidents today, especially Jimmy Carter, who is still going strong at 99. Now, let's talk about the current president, Joe Biden. When he took the oath of office, he became the oldest president in U.S. history. He's currently 81 years old and wisely decided not to run for re-election, leaving the opportunity to Kamala Harris to become America's first female president. So there you have it, the story of how each U.S. president met their end. Kudos to you for making it all the way through this video. Just a heads up, strokes seem to have taken out quite a few presidents, so keep an eye on that blood pressure. Oh, and don't forget to strap on your seatbelt for extra safety. What kind of presidential history video should I do next? Drop your ideas in the comments.